Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the Tea Time with Dr. Tarver is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. Here we are in our last Tuesday in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I am very excited about my guest for today. I have been looking forward to this conversation the whole month as he and I did some prep coming into this. So as usual, if you all have questions or comments, just drop them into the chat. We'll do our best to try to get to them. And then also, please make sure to invite somebody over. I know this is an important conversation and a lot of people are typically interested in learning more about the transgender community. Now, I do want you all to be aware that my guest does not represent everyone who identifies as trans. He is here to share his story and some of his personal experiences. So we will be answering questions based on that, as opposed to just thinking that he represents everyone. But let's go ahead and get into it. Mr. Byron Omari Nicholas is a transgender male who was born as a female in the 70s and raised in a small town in Mississippi. He and his two siblings were raised by his parents in a strict household that did not believe in homosexuality. Even though biologically born female, Mr. Nicholas always felt he was a male. For 30 years, Mr. Nicholas lived a double life until 2017. Currently, Mr. Nicholas is happily living his life as a transgender male, advocating for trans and LGBT rights. He is dedicated to helping others live their truth. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Mr. Nicholas.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here to share my
Absolutely.
story.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming on the show to share your story. I do appreciate that.
No problem. Always here to help.
You are. All right, so I want to start off by providing a few definitions. I get a lot of questions about what it means when somebody identifies as transgender, and there's a lot of confusion about what that means. So I want to just kind of give a little bit of information to help people get a foundation as we're going to be talking a little bit about your journey. So transgender can encompass a lot of things. And that does include people whose personal sense of identity does not match their biological sex or the sex that was assigned to them at birth. It could also mean that you don't necessarily ascribe to the stereotype gender norms that come along with a biological sex, or it could be people who do not identify as either male or female. And so there is a spectrum that transgender can incorporate, and also cisgender just simply means that however you biologically were born in terms of your sex, your sense of personal identity aligns with that, right? And then we also want to talk about that being transgender does not mean that a person is a pedophile. It doesn't mean that a person is gay. It doesn't mean that a person is lesbian. It can incorporate a lot of different sexual orientations within that. And so we don't want to limit people because that is an identity, that is not an orientation. So just a little quick background there. But as we get into you, Mr. Nicholas, when did you recognize that your identity and the gender that you were assigned at birth did not correspond to how you saw yourself?
Well, I realized at an early age, believe it or not, I know people, I have heard before the stories of people who's like, oh, well, how you know you're born gay, or, you know, you're born lesbian or whatever at an early age. Believe it or not, when you're young and you're growing up, you're able to identify who's a male, who's a female at an early age. Also, you develop senses. And from an early age, I knew that I always was attracted to females. I didn't know the definition behind everything at an early age because, like I said, I was born in the 70s. This was new to me. Probably new to the world. You probably had a few homosexuals that were exposed out in the world at that time. But for me, like I said, I was growing up. I probably was like maybe 5, the earliest I remember. But I always, you know, identified myself kind of as a male growing up. Even to my younger siblings, my sister and my brother, at an early age, I enclosed some information with them, you know, when they got a certain age, to let them know, like, hey, I think I should have been born a boy, you know. It's kind of funny. My sister, I don't know if she's listening or not. She was like, "Girl, what are you talking about?" But me and my sister had that type of relationship. Where regardless of the fact that even if I identified myself as a male, I still wanted my sister to know, like, no matter what, at the end of the day, I'm still your sister. So I kind of like held that in, but I still let them know, like, hey, I think I should have been born a boy. I like girls, and this is what it is. So, they actually held that secret for a long time. They did not even disclose that to my mom or to my father. We just kept that secret amongst ourselves. And, we lived our everyday life. But, when we had our childhood games and we played the childhood games growing up, even with my friends next door or the friends in the neighborhood. I always wanted to be like the father or play the male role in those games. I really never wanted to play the female role. I never was comfortable. Even if they asked me to do it, I'll do it, but I wasn't never comfortable doing it. I'll do anything for my friends. So, just to sum that up in one piece, you know, um, I had an amazing childhood, regardless of the fact. I made the best of it.
Well, and it's, a couple of powerful things that I wanna highlight. And one is that your siblings, right? Like, so your sister, y'all were close enough for you to be able to say, like, hey, I think I should have been born a boy. Like, I don't think this was turned out right. And a lot of people will ask that question about, well, did something happen to you in your life, or did something negative happen, and so you feel disjointed. But what you're saying is, as early as I can remember, I recognize this experience in my body, and even if I didn't have the words for it at the time, I understood that something was different within me that felt like I'm a male, even if on the outside I don't necessarily look like a male.
Yes. No matter how hard I tried to quote unquote fit in, um, deep down in my heart, I knew that I should have been born a male, and I identified as a male, no matter what.
So you mentioned keeping this secret, and y'all, I apologize. The cleaning staff want to vacuum right now. But anyway, uh, keeping this secret, growing up in this family, like, what was your household like, being able to? So with my sister here, I'm able to be open and honest, but with my family and probably most of the people that know me, I'm not able to necessarily be honest about that. So how did that affect you being able to express your gender identity coming up?
Well, I didn't. I actually just went along with society. Um, just like the typical down south household, very strict. My mom, thank God that my grandmother did an amazing job raising my mom and her sisters and brothers, like, with the strict household. But we grew up in church, church family, went to church every Sunday, didn't miss a Sunday, didn't miss, have to wake up, going to rehearsal and things like that. But the household itself was very strictly ran. Um, we had to do our homework on time, and homework was checked. And I just, as far as myself and my lifestyle, I walked on eggshells around the house. I wanted to, wear boys' boxers. I know one time my mom did catch me one time putting on a pair of boys' boxers. Um, she thought I was crazy. She asked me pretty much what I was doing. Why did I want to wear men's boxers? At that time, like, I was trying to tell her, like, look, like, I feel comfortable wearing the men's boxers or whatever. But, like I said, household was very strict. So she reeled me in, had that conversation with me, hey, look, you're a girl, girls do not wear men's underwear. And, basically, got reprimanded for that. Um, I remember, the TV show Ricky Lake was out back in the day. Ricky Lake had a lot of homosexuals on her show as well. I used to be a fan of the Ricky Lake show. I remember one time I was watching the show, and my father came home, and he made some obscene comments, towards the show. Um, so from there, I kind of knew how my parents felt, about homosexuality. So I did not want to discourage them in any type of formal way. So, I kind of just went along, you know, with society. And I have to keep saying it like that because, for us, we have to kind of go with society sometimes, to make it seem like we're part of the norm instead of like, feeling different. So until we are comfortable with ourselves, so we kind of go with the flow. So when I was growing up, I was going with the flow, around my friends, around my family, everything, just to make sure I didn't look different towards anyone. Now you did ask the question because some people look at it like, when you're growing up, something tragically bad happened in your life. Not everyone has a story for you. Unfortunately, for those who remember me and, like my classmates, unfortunately, I did have a situation that occurred. Like, this is my first time openly speaking about that. It's been years since that incident, but I was molested at an early age when I was in middle school. But prior to middle school, what y'all failed to realize was I was already feeling like this, at age like 5 or 6. So it really had nothing to do with what I went through at that point in my life, but it was always here. Unfortunately, that situation happened. I was able to get over that situation, and it made me a stronger person and a better person today. But not everyone has a backstory of they was molested or something happened in their life. People are actually born, you know, in this way, in this manner. They're born gay, they're born lesbian, they're born trans, they're born cisgender. However, you want, to look at it. We're here, just like how you're here. You're born. You came into the earth, into the world, the way you came into the earth, the way you came into the world. We didn't view you, of who you are today, who you are now. We accepted you as who you are. you know, you probably now, I don't know. You grew up, you went to church just like how we did. Was born and raised in church. Who knows? Your life 10 years later, 15 years later, you know, who are you today? You may not be that same person, but I didn't ever look at you as any different. And that's all we're trying to say. We know different from the next person.
Well, first of all, let me say, you didn't owe anybody any explanation about you having unfortunately experience of being molested. And let me honor you in that way. That's something you decided to disclose, which takes a lot of bravery, especially in a world that can be very critical of when we are transparent and open with people about who we are. So I want to say thank you. Um, and second of all, thank you also for that clarification. It can be a both and. A person can have had an experience, unfortunately, where they've been molested or had a negative experience. But as you talked about, who I was already was in place before then. In the same way it is for us. Most of us have stories of 4 or 5 years old and having our crush and seeing somebody and just liking the way they look. When you're a little kid, a lot of us have, our families have stories about, oh yeah, I knew who you liked early on because you would get so excited when you would see X. And the same is true for you. So thank you for that transparency. Thank you for that honesty. And also thank you for that clarity for people, because part of what we talked about we wanted to do in this conversation was dispel some of these myths and get rid of some of this stigma that's associated with people who identify as trans. Like, I'm a human being underneath all of this. I'm God's child underneath all. None of that has changed. I still am who I am. And this is just one aspect of me. It's not the totality of me, but I'm hearing a lot of painful things too. Like, I'm having to cover this up. I'm having to present myself in ways that don't make me look like I'm any different than anyone else. How did that affect your self-esteem and your worth growing up? That conversation with your mom about the boxers, which people may not think is very important, but to me, that's very important. Like, this is part of how I feel comfortable. And you're telling me I can't be comfortable in my own skin. So like, how did that affect you?
You're right. Growing up, that was tough. That was a tough position. I look at it like, because I work at a school, so I do understand when a child's getting bullied and stuff. I was getting bullied also in school. Even though I was popular, people don't understand. I got bullied for the color of my skin. I got bullied because I have this tumor on my arm. People, thought I had got burnt. So, I was called scar arm, scar face. Like, all those hurtful things along on top of that, you're dealing what you're dealing with. Um, Thank God I have a thick layer of skin. I can't even describe or even say to you how growing up, how rough it was just going through the battle every day, just knowing you can't be who you really want to be around your friends. You look around, you see everybody's happy. I'm around my friends on the basketball team. Everybody's happy, they're laughing, they have their boyfriend, and it was gonna come up eventually in my life, from my mom and other females that are in my family, like, hey, you don't like any boys that go to your school? No, not really. That's the honest answer that I
Mhm.
really want to give them. But at the end of the day, like, I know it's just gonna keep coming. You know, I did tell my mom, I can't remember how old I was, but I know my sister and brother remember. I did tell them like that I like girls, I was gay, or my mom kept asking me at a certain point, she would ask me like every day, that question, but I wasn't ready at the time to tell her, for various reasons. The main reasons was like, how she would feel, how she would react. That was my main thing. And, as far as my friends go, like, by you being popular in school and stuff, I didn't want to lose any of my friends, like you, for example, and several others, you know, class of 95, we were strong, class of 94, like we all was very tight. We was and I missed that bond. And I did not want to lose like not one person, that was there, but we were young at the time. Uh, Being trans was not a common thing. So, just would people understand? Would y'all know how to accept me? Would y'all know how to accept a person in the trans community? Like, all those questions arose and stuff. So, I just walked around every day with a smile on my face, and appeared to be happy, but deep down inside I wasn't, you know. But I made sure, every day I had to keep telling myself, no matter what, like you're pretty, you're beautiful, because like I said, like I got made fun of a lot as far as my skin color. So that was like a number one thing that was so hard for me, battling every day, is the skin color. And then on top of that, that was the next thing, and I battled with that for years. I was never comfortable with my skin color, because even if you looked at my sister and my brother, they're not the same
They were
complexion as
lighter.
me.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were lighter. So I questioned my mom and my father a lot. Are you really my parents? So people don't understand, like, it just wasn't about that. You
Layers.
know,
Sounds like a
it
lot of
was it
different
was it was
layers.
it was layers of
Mhm.
stuff, you know. But here I am today, being the handsome gentleman that I am.
And are.
You, like
Yeah.
I said, you had to keep building yourself up,
Yeah.
and from time to time, you'll see me do that,
Mhm.
because it took a lot for me to be comfortable with myself and who I was.
Yeah. Well, and then I think too, like so many people, like so you got a lot of Grenada people on, that's shouting you out, appreciating you for sharing this journey. But sometimes it can be hard when we have to go back into the community from which we came out of, right? So they're the people that grew up with you. And so they remember you, like you said, as classmates, growing up. And so it takes to me an extra level of bravery and courage, right, and strength to be able to go back into a community that already had rejected you over skin color and over, a tumor and over all of these things that you don't have any control of, that are a part of you. But unfortunately, we grew up in Mississippi, and I know this doesn't exist just in Mississippi, but colorism is very strong in the South. And so there's very much a different experience when you're lighter skin versus darker skin. And then you start adding the layers. Do you wear glasses? Are you, like you said, are you popular or not popular? Do you have a group of friends who you connect? So it's all of these. What church do you go to? And what's your experience at this church? So there's all of these different layers you were navigating throughout your life. And you mentioned a double life. And so I do want to talk about that, like, because I imagine that's part of this double life experience. So I can only be what you all, I think, will allow me to be, will be safe with me being like your mom, in this space where people know me. But then I may have carved out this other space over here where I can be genuinely and authentically who I am. So talk to us a little bit about navigating those different spaces.
Well, like I said, growing up and when I was going through middle school and high school, like I said, I was very popular. I had friends and stuff. So I did not want to, be different. So I kind of like forced myself, to talk to males and talk to guys and, different things like that. For myself, I did lower my standards, but I'm doing this to make everyone else happy but myself. So that's how that double role came into play. So when I'm at home and I'm around my mom and I'm around, my classmates, you guys, I'm one way. So I felt like, well, when is the time that I'm gonna be able to be comfortable with myself and live my life, and nobody, to judge me or whatever. At that time, like when we was growing up, I felt like it was no way for me to be comfortable with doing that. So that's kind of how I made the decision of going into the military in a way, kind of get away from y'all and get away from people and get away from that so I can kind of live my life a little bit. So when it came to me going into the military, that kind of was like based like that decision kind of was made like that. Um, Honestly, I really wanted to go to college. I was in sports a lot, so I kind of wanted to go to college, for sports and things like that. But I felt like that it was just going to repeat itself. You know, now I'm gonna be, around a different group of people. Are you still gonna be, able to be yourself? Like a couple people may know you from, what I'm saying, back at home, the college that you may choose. Like, are you gonna still be able to, be who you are, live in your truth? No, I felt like at the time, no, and like I said, this is still like in like by this time we're in the 90s. So it's still not a whole bunch of trans community, it's a little bit out there, but not, I'm speaking from Mississippi. I'm not speaking from here where I'm living in New York or whatever it was, it's a larger community and stuff. I'm still speaking from down south, you know. Um, like I said, I went to the military to feel like I could escape, you know, from living this way. So when I actually did go into the military, I kind of was like opened up a little bit. Even though it was like don't ask, don't tell in the military at the time that I went,
Right,
I felt
right.
like I could still be a little bit more free. Um, I actually had a great experience when I was there in the military. I was able to, be more comfortable and, be more free and, expose myself out there to people and stuff. So that was like my getaway. But you got to understand, I was right in Louisiana. So when I pack up and go home on the weekend, I'm packing up and I'm going back home in this little box. Even though I go out and I go come and party with y'all, you know,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, yeah, I'm having a good time. I'm having a great time because I'm around my classmates. I haven't seen y'all in a long time. But at the end of the day, I'm still not happy. I'm still
Yeah,
not comfortable, you
because you're
know?
not able to be
So
real.
nah. So, I had to go live this double life. So I've been living this double life for a while, even through the military, through the don't ask, don't tell the whole time in the military, even though, I I identified myself as a lesbian when I was in the military. That was more accepting as far as being transgender.
Okay.
So there's also layers to that too as well.
Mhm.
So it's one thing in the military that you already you're identified as a gay female.
Mhm.
Then you taking it a step further. Now you're trans.
Mhm.
So everything is in steps.
Yeah.
And I feel like everything that I did is in steps and phases.
Okay.
So, and it's
So you
for a
had to kind of
purpose.
be calculated in terms
Yes,
of.
it's for a purpose and for a reason. It's
Mhm.
not really until I came out of the military I felt like I could be a little bit more freer, even when I came home. Because at this point now, my mom already knew. Because I
She knew
actually,
that you were identified as lesbian, or did she know that you were
as a
identified as
lesbian,
trans?
like I
Okay.
said, everything is in steps and phases.
Okay.
She knew I identified as lesbian because when we went to Bosnia, we had vacation prior to us going overseas to Bosnia. I'm being very honest with you. I did not know if I was going to make it back home to my family.
Mhm.
So if anything happened to me while I was there, at least I wanted my mom to know. Out of all these years, she asked me every single day of my life,
Mhm.
"Was are you gay?"
Mhm.
So that was the time I actually was able to come out and let her know, like, and was just straight up open and honest with her. All these
Right.
years you asked
Right.
me, yes, I am. This is what it is. Now, it's one thing me telling her. Another thing is
Mhm.
like her accepting at the
Right.
time who I
Right.
was and
Right.
what it is.
Layers.
The layers. Like
Right.
people don't understand certain
Mhm.
stuff has to be done in layers for a reason. I did mine in a reason. I'm speaking for myself. I can't speak
Mhm.
for the next person. I
Right.
had to do it for myself in layers for various reasons. Protect my family and their feelings, and
Right.
also my friends. Like y'all don't understand how important, my family and my friends are in my life. Y'all play a huge role in my life. So I never wanted to ever disappoint anybody in my family or my friends, because I've been told so many times that a lot of people look up to me as a role model. So I never want to disappoint anybody. I never want for anybody to look at me in a negative light, a negative manner. Especially if you look up to me, like my niece Ty, she always looked up to me as a role model, and several other younger people.
Mhm.
Younger children,
Yeah.
younger students.
Mhm.
So
You're
I have
carrying
like
that
this,
weight,
yeah, I have
all the
like this
weight of all
light
these
on me.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have like this light on me. So that's another reason why, I want to do this documentary about my life,
Mhm.
so you'll be able to understand and, give a little background history on, a transgender and being trans. And also, y'all are up and close and personal. You probably never think in a million years that you ever have a friend or meet a friend or
Mhm.
have someone who actually is a transgender. You can pick up the phone, call me.
Yeah.
We have these phone conversations all the
Mhm.
time, but um is I look at it now as like a blessing that
Mhm.
I have finally came out so I can be able to help others.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like you're still even taking care of people now. Like you're still like,
Yes.
hey, if you all need to talk, you got questions, holla at me. You're still there. Like we talk about these layers, we don't talk about this weight. Like that's a lot of weight to be carrying. At first it was the weight of I didn't feel comfortable being who I was because I didn't feel like you all could handle that. I didn't want you ought to be affected in a negative way. Then there's this weight of people look up to me and I have a responsibility to the people that I love and care about. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that, is representing the value that I have for them. And now it's well, let me educate people and be able to help with some of this stigma and be able to, so there's just so many things that you carry. And so, I often do wonder, like, do you get a chance to take care of you with all of this weight on you? Do you get a chance to what happened in 2017? What happened that led you to start living naked and unashamed? But also, how do you take care of you in this process too?
Well, I'm gonna start with what happened in 2017. In 2017, like I said, I work at a school district. In 2017, we had a student that identified as a male. She was born female. Um, I looked up to that student. Um, he stood up for himself on all his rights. Um, that was the time when school districts was actually going through the situation where which restroom, were they gonna use, the transgender students. So that was that year. Um, I actually sat back and looked and watched every aspect of that student's life. And for me, I was like, here I am every single day. I stand in front of these children. I tell people to be real and who they are. and I can't even be real, you know what I'm saying, to
Mm,
myself. And I was like,
mm,
at what point of your life are you going to decide that you're going to be happy? Like,
mm,
here I am still living like this double life and I'm still not happy. Like, y'all
mm,
look at me every single day. I can post 1,000 things on social media and think I'm happy, but I'm totally not.
mm.
So I had to come to terms with myself. Like, here it is. Like, this is it. Like, and I picked up the phone. I'll never forget the date. It was the 30th now, matter of fact, it was the 28th of June,
Mm. Oh, wow.
2017.
Here we are getting ready to go into June.
Yeah, I
Mm,
called my mother. I told her it was just playing out. It was a hot summer day. I'll never forget it. It was hot outside. I was in the backyard. And I picked up the phone and called her. I felt like I had to get this weight off my shoulders.
mm,
I've been carrying this for so long. And that's the
mm,
same thing that I told her. I said, I told her she was already had already accepted the fact that, I was a gay female.
mhm.
Fine, no problem. Now I call her and tell her, not only am I a gay female, I'm transgender. I'm a
Mhm,
male.
mm.
Her exact words were, "You done went too far.
Mm.
You don't went too far for this one. Yeah,
That's a black mama for you
you
right there.
done went too far.
Like this is too much. Like
This is just too
I
much.
can't even
This
wrap
is
my mind
too
around this.
much. This is too
Yeah.
much." Well, I told her, and honestly, I hung the phone up. I'm being honest with you. I hung the phone up right
Okay.
away. Um, I didn't honestly even want to hear what she had to say at the time.
Mm,
I just wanted to get it off my chest. This is what it is, or whatever. I actually called her back. I can't remember if it was the same day, the next 2 days. I think we spoke the next 2 days because I
okay.
gave her time to process it.
Yeah. And
But I
not to
had to,
mention you hung up on your mama, which is a direct violation of
yeah, I had to process
right.
everything and what I did and everything and
All of
stuff. I
that.
was like,
Right.
oh, you real bold now,
Right.
and you
Right.
gonna call her
I
and
done
say something
dropped
like
this
that,
on you and I'm gonna hang up after
and
I
yeah, I
tell you.
ain't gonna hang up, like,
Right.
yeah, because I ain't want to go through. I ain't want to go through the
Yeah.
emotions,
And it was
So
fresh too. So she would have
it was
just
fresh.
said whatever came to her mind initially, which might have been a little hard.
Yeah, then at that time, I think I probably would have said something what was on my mind too. So it probably
Mm,
was a good time for me to hang up.
okay.
You know,
Got to
you
know
know, you
yourself.
yeah, you got to know. So
Mm,
yeah, I hung up the phone, and like I said, we had a conversation a couple days later, and she was like, "You know what? As long as you're happy," she
mm.
was like, That's all I'm concerned about. As long as you're
Wow.
happy."
Wow.
And I was told her, I said, "Mom, I am happy. I'm finally happy. This is it." From the
Mm,
moment I had that conversation with her, I didn't care who
mm.
had anything to say about it,
Yeah.
whether it's positive, negative, whatever it was,
Mm,
you know, my mom gave me the okay. And, that was good. It sat really good in my heart.
yeah.
And I'll never forget that day. And I never looked back. And to
Mm.
be honest, this is the happiest I ever been. The only thing I
In that
regret,
moment, you were free.
yeah, the only thing I regret, I probably didn't do it sooner. But I started thinking about it, and I was like, everything happens for a reason. Maybe
Absolutely.
this
Absolutely.
was the time for me
Mhm.
to tell her this.
Yeah.
Maybe
And you were
God,
ready. You were
yeah,
ready
maybe
to tell
God
her that.
placed this where it took 30 years for me to go
Absolutely.
through, because
Absolutely.
at first she thought it was a phase, and
Mhm.
things like that. People do think you're going through a phase
Yeah. You're going to grow
when
out of
you come
this.
out, yeah,
Yeah. Even though
openly
you
and say
grown.
that you're gay, yeah. Or people do look at your past or your background
Mm,
and say, well, you talk to this person here, you talk to that person there. I may have talked to that person, but that doesn't mean, like,
yeah.
I was happy that was me. You
Right.
ever thought about that? I
Yeah.
talked to this
Yeah.
person I
Yeah.
talked to that person just because
Mm.
it's for y'all.
Right. Because again,
You
I'm
know,
still doing things at this point to
I'm
protect you
doing,
all.
yeah, I'm doing
Mhm.
this for y'all. I'm
Yeah.
not doing it for
Absolutely.
me. I'm doing it for
Absolutely.
y'all.
Yeah.
So, so that was my turning point in 2017.
Well,
Thank
first of
God
all,
for
let
that
me
student.
applaud your mama for saying as long as you're right, because that's not a typical Southern mama response, especially during this time.
No,
Uh,
no, because I figured I had took my mom through the ringer at that point,
yeah,
and and that was also another thing. Like, people don't understand why I say I did it in steps. When
yeah,
you're from the South, when you're
mhm,
raised in such a rural area, and you're born and raised in church,
right,
it's like layers to this. Like, you just cannot walk up and just be like,
mhm,
"Hey, mom, how you doing? Yeah, by the way, yeah, I'm gay." By the way, I like girls. By the way, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
I didn't want to
At
kill her.
one time. Yeah.
It's too much.
Mhm.
So you have to sometimes do it in layers, and you have to most importantly do it when you're comfortable
Mhm.
and you feel like it's a good time.
Yeah. And to be able to deal with the consequences of it, because you didn't know
Yeah,
for certain how your mother was going to respond.
and that's another thing. Like it's hard for you to openly want to come out and talk about it because you don't want the backlash of what's gonna happen.
Right. Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's a
And the
lot of people.
questions. I know a lot of times
The
people have
questions,
questions.
yes, a lot of questions. A lot of people, like they lose their whole family over just trying to be who they want to be or
Right.
who they are.
Absolutely. Who they are.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so like I said, I'm happy to share my story because
Mhm.
my story is totally different from the next person's story. You
Right.
don't know how many times that I hear these stories of people, like you're coming out and a male or female is open, come out and tell their parent or whoever in their
Mhm.
family, that they're gay or trans or cisgender, whatever you
Mhm.
are, and they get their back turned to them. Like you don't
Yeah.
understand that pain,
Mhm.
that feeling that they are experiencing. Like it's like somebody just closed that job opportunity, that door on right in your face, and you knew you had the qualifications and the credentials for that job.
Yeah.
Like that's that feeling that you get,
Mhm.
and you work so hard to get there, and then just to get that door slammed in your face
Yeah.
of being rejected, like
Yeah.
rejection.
That's some
Like
deep
that's
rejection. That's
yeah, that's
the
that's
I go
painful
out to
though.
hug you and you turn and walk away from me pain.
But it's painful. It happens every single day. It's
Yeah.
happening right now. Like we're
Mhm.
sitting here talking right now, and
Mhm.
and somebody is probably getting rejected.
Right. Absolutely. Whether it's from their family or their church or their job or their friends. Because you had a
Yeah,
coming out process literally of about, like you said, you were about 30 when you really finally was like, okay. And I cut you off, but you were talking about, I appreciate this student because it was through this student that I was able to recognize it's time.
yes, yes. And like I said, to this day, um, if I saw that student, I would just walk up to him and just let him know, like, you're an angel, and you just don't know how just your life experience helped me out, and it's gonna
Mhm.
help others out. You know,
Absolutely.
and he was also struggling with several things too. His mom, um, she did not, want him to be who he was. She did not believe in, homosexuality. So, I kind of related to that student a little bit, like, the pain that he was going through. So,
Yeah.
from that moment, like I said, I don't want another student to walk around feeling like that.
Yeah.
Like you're not alone.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
That you're not alone. You're loved.
yeah, you're
You're
loved.
important. You're valued. You're worthy. And a couple of people have made comments about just how judgmental we are at different points in our lives. And so
Yes.
as you talk about this process of coming out for you, where you're like, I had to release a little at a time because I had to kind of be aware of my audience. That's some of why we have to make those tough decisions in our lives, because we recognize like people aren't there yet because of what we've been taught, how we grew up. Well, we know Mississippi has some very narrow perspectives on a lot of different things. Then you add church on top of that. Then you add, we're in this small community where everybody knows everybody on top of that. So like you said, I can't necessarily feel like I can live my truth because somebody might see me and they're going to come back to you and tell you, hey, I saw your child out here and they were living like this, they were looking like this, they were doing this. And the last thing we want to do, you mentioned giving your mom, you want to give your mom a heart attack, the last thing we want to do is for you to hear something in the streets that you didn't hear from me. So you have to be so careful. But I want to shift to and talk about the church experience, because I know that you mentioned it, alluded to it a little earlier. Like I can get rejected from family, I can also get rejected from the space that I would want to be my safe space, this place of faith that teaches me unconditional love. Um, but a lot of times people will make statements like, well, God wouldn't be pleased with you because you're altering the body God gave you. And we know that God is a part of this whole process when we get to a point where we're educated and understand, but when we grow up, we don't necessarily learn that. We have some very, I think, very dismissive and oftentimes very hurtful, and keeping you kind of sheltered and in because you don't want to come out, you don't want to be judged by people. So talk to us a little bit about what your faith experience has been like growing up as a child where you weren't able to be authentically you to now being a congruent self where you are integrated. What has that faith experience been like for you?
Well, like I said, my mom made sure every Sunday we was at church. We did it all, went to revival. I was in the choir. Believe it or not, like I talk about the choir all the time when we did interfaith. You was a
Yeah,
part of interfaith mass choir. I
absolutely.
talk about it up here. I think a couple of people up here when I mention it, they turn and give me like a double look. Like, yeah, I was a part of a large church choir. Went on
Mhm.
Bobby Jones' gospel show. We had
Mhm.
like a great time. 200 plus of us used to be up here singing. This is what I love. I love this. This is what I
Mhm.
used to do.
Mhm.
But also as well, like, when I love church. The only thing I
Yeah.
hated about church was that, I had to put on that dress, like, every Sunday. And it's like, I could not get away from that dress.
Mhm.
Like, I wanted to be, come as I tell my mom all the time, it's like, come as you are.
Mhm.
So it's not like you can really come as you are. I'm coming as somebody else. I'm coming
Mhm.
as like Keisha, Kim, whoever
Mhm.
this girl is in this dress, because it's not me.
Mhm.
I wanted to just come as who I was. But growing up in church, I'm glad that my mom had us born in church, attending church. You learn a lot about the Bible and things like that.
Mhm.
Also, as I grew up, I was still attending church. I stopped attending church. Since I've been here in New York, I was going early on, but now I stopped going. Um, do I want to still attend church? Yes. Um, I have, just hadn't had the time to sit down and really pick a church that I want to go to. I have attended, like I said, a couple of co-workers churches.
Mhm.
Um, but then I started thinking about, when I'm at church and, you have the pastor that's there and, that topic does come up about homosexuality and I start to get mad and angry when I'm in church, because we're looked upon like we're degrading a degrading group of individuals. You know, um,
Mhm.
it's not like when the pastor's up there is preaching and talking about homosexuality. It's not like he's saying positive things about us.
Yeah.
So so that is a problem because you're supposed to be preaching, the word of God, and you're supposed to love all of God's children. But here you are, it's like you're spilling out the hate towards
Mhm.
our community or
Mhm.
whatever. And that's the only part of church that I dislike. Because we should be able to attend church. I have discussed this with my aunt, who's also a minister
Okay.
as well. Um, I also came out to her as well too, and like out of every last one of my family members, I thought my mom was gonna be the tough one.
Mhm.
When I had to have that conversation with her because I respect my aunt, and believe it or not, she was like, you know what? She was like, I've been working with that community for a while because she also is a professor in college, so she's been taking classes and courses and things like that. So she has educated herself,
Mhm.
you know, which I was also excited about. And it
Mhm.
surprised me because when we had that conversation, she already knew about the pronouns, she already knew about everything. So I was like, okay, go ahead on Jean. So, I was proud about that. But we also discussed that, and she also wanted to speak about it you know, at church, you
Mhm.
know, supporting the LBGT community, but it was also the backlash if she was going to be facing backlash of her standing there talking about,
Right.
accepting, you
Mhm.
know, supporting,
Mhm.
not, pretty much every single thing we do, but just, supporting us enough to show that we're loved,
Yes, you're God's
and that's the
child.
and
Absolutely.
that's the portion that she was
Yeah,
trying to incorporate
absolutely.
into the church. How would she incorporate that piece into the church setting?
Yeah.
So that's always was a question.
Yeah.
So we still had to figure out, that portion yet. How will we do it? But that has been a question. They have discussed that. So it seemed like, that's a start.
It
That's a
is.
start,
That's a huge
you
step.
know. Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
start, and I'm happy to hear that's a start. Also, I know here in New York, they also have churches that that are LBGT community. So, I can also attend those churches as well
Mhm.
if I choose to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's it about church.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you. One of your former church members stated she remembered you've always hated wearing dresses.
Oh,
Um,
well, I'm glad you know.
well, but right? So if we're paying attention, like people are seeing these things, people are recognizing these things, and I think we do have a responsibility if we say we are believers in God, if we say we are followers of Christ, to create a safe space for people to be who they are. Because we're all one in Christ Jesus. So if we're all one, I don't want you being somebody you're not when you walk in this space. I want you to be transparent and authentic and able to live naked and unashamed, as we say. I don't want you to be hiding, because God already knows who you are. So why do I need to hide for these church congregants when God and I have a relationship? So that's the person or the being or the entity, however we envision our relationship with God. That's the person who unconditionally loves me. So if God unconditionally loves me, who are other people to not love me unconditionally and try to tell me that I'm less than or I'm not worthy? So I do appreciate you sharing, because sometimes people do believe that because a person is in the trans community, that means they don't have faith. Like you can't love God, you can't have a relationship with God, and
Yes.
that's a myth I want to dispel. Like you absolutely, like you said, I grew up in the church. My mother taught me to have a relationship with God. That has been a foundation for me. So these exist together; they don't exist separately.
And just for the record, just because I don't attend church doesn't mean that I don't pray. I do pray. I pray every single day. And I carry God in my heart every single day. And sometimes I will go online and look at some church services as well. So, I still, have God a part of my heart, like
Yeah,
no matter what I do,
yeah.
you know.
And that's evident in the work that you're doing. So I want to kind of switch over and talk a little bit about how we can advocate for people. Like, how can we show up? Like we talked about, your mom said, hey, whatever makes you happy. How your aunt was able to say, like, hey, I've actually been working with the trans community. How can we advocate for people? Just, show up and be good human beings. Like you said, be those role models, be safe spaces where kids can be genuinely who they are around us. Or if we do have a friend that comes out to us, and being able to be supportive of them in their journey, like what would you recommend for our audience about ways that they
Well,
can show up?
the first thing is, just being a listening ear to someone, believe it or not, is a great help. That's a start because, actuality, people like to talk. And sometimes, like, is there not enough people just to listen sometimes? And so you just be a listening ear, first to that person or, group of people, whoever is coming to you for the advice. And also try to educate yourself a little bit more about, the, LBGT community.
Mhm.
We're actually good people. We're very smart, um, talented as well. Um, start to learn the pronouns and different things like that about the community. Because just say you're interacting with someone like myself or someone else as well who identify themselves as male, you will want to use the right pronoun when you're speaking to them. You don't want to disrespect them just as well how you want somebody to respect you and your
Mhm.
professionalism. Where if you're a doctor or whoever you are, a lawyer or whoever you are, you
Mhm.
want them to be able to respect you in the same setting. So, make sure you educate yourself a little bit more about that. If you're a parent, this is the most important thing. If you're a parent and
Mhm.
you have a son or daughter or a cousin or somebody who's in the lifestyle and is struggling with, you know, just their identity, you need to let them know like it's okay. You have someone here that that loves you to talk, to talk to them, and provide that love and support, because that is key. And people don't understand, as being young adults, that is very key for them to feel like they're loved, especially now, going through COVID. A lot of these kids have social and emotional issues. So you have to ensure them like, their life is very precious and they're loved. Whatever. There's so many students and so many kids out here that are harming themselves, that are cutting themselves, and over these words like you're ugly, you're gay, and just let them know and assure them like, you're not ugly, you're beautiful, and let them know they're worthy. And those things, that is very key. Also, we have like a lot of outreach programs and stuff, like attend, like my best friend, for example. I don't know if she's listening right now. She's a straight female. I have a lot of straight females as friends. She took time out one day. She actually surprised me, and she actually went to one of my outreach groups, and she started to educate herself on the pronouns and different things about our community and stuff. So take the time out, like and make sure that you're involving yourself, with much as you can to help someone out. If you're a teacher, your students that are in front of you, there's some kids are struggling. Like right now, I have a couple of kids that I know that are at the location where I'm at, that are struggling with their identity and stuff. And being in a school setting, and I'm not a teacher, but I play a serious important role in the building. And it's a kind of a fine line when you're working and you're trying to help out a student or a child. Your job, you don't really want to overstep it a little bit, because you don't want to put your job in jeopardy. But I would do whatever it takes to make sure a child knows that they're loved and stuff, where if it's putting my job out there on the line, at least I know I saved someone's life, and what, no matter what it is, I'm gonna make sure I put my best foot forward, because I feel like God gave me this purpose here. I think I found it, and that is to help other people. As you're growing up, you really don't know what's your purpose here, why you're here. And I think I finally found my purpose. Like I told my mom, just don't look at this as a negative way. Look at it as something positive, because I'm helping other people. I was like, you don't understand. Ever since I came out, so many people have came up to me and was like, you're so bold. I look up to you, because you didn't have to come out, and you have all of this going on, and how did you overcome all of this or whatever. I can't tell you how I overcame everything and where I'm at now. It's the grace of God, and just probably having God in my heart and carrying him through my day-to-day, journey with me, to get me through half the stuff that I have been through. Like I said, I have important surgeries that's coming up in the next 3 months. This is like the most it's probably the most difficult surgery I'm probably going to have in life. And I've waited for the surgery date for like 2 years, and I'm so happy. For those who don't know, like I said, I'm undergoing phalloplasty surgery. I don't have time to explain everything right now. Like I said, you got to educate yourself. You can read up on it. It's a very intense surgery. It's basically reconstructing the lower part of your anatomy. That's the best way I could put it.
That's a good description.
So just re-educate yourself. I'm asking y'all just to pray for me, in prayers. Also, along with supporting, I'm also in a lot of Facebook groups for support. Well, gay and lesbians Facebook groups. Transgender Facebook groups. Just groups of people from that community, just to make sure, like, if I have questions about something, I will go to that page or go to the pages. I look. I tell the other people that you talk to your doctors. That's another thing that's key and important. Talk to your doctors. I have a good team of doctors. Dr. Rosenthal, I don't know if you're listening right now. My doctor is also on my Facebook page. He's a wonderful man. He actually started this journey for us here in Long Island, where I live at, because we would have to drive all the way to the city for our services. So thank God for him that he actually has opened our own transgender center here in Long Island. So I was a part of that, the opening for that. I actually spoke for Northwell Health when we opened our first transgender center. So I'm here, like I said, I'm advocating for myself, for the youth, for our community. Also, African Americans. I would like to see more support from our African American community. As far as like the LGBT community, I know for us that's a lot. We have a lot of stereotypes
Not a stigma.
from our from our community, but believe it or not, there's a lot of suicidal people that are African Americans, and a lot of people that are dying that are African American.
Yes.
I don't know if Dr. Rivers is on here listening. Dr. Rivers is also someone that's working close with me to do my documentary. Dr. Rivers is over the Stolen Lives Project. Y'all can look that up online also as well. The Stolen Life Project is for all the groups of people LBG community that were killed since God knows years ago. She makes sure every day when we lose someone. She's a great artist. She actually draws a photo of them, and she recognized them at all her art shows or art galleries. So like I said, you can turn to her page. She has a whole collection of the Stolen Life Project on that.
Yeah. That's very powerful. I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for sharing for educating because when you're vulnerable people, you put yourself out there for people to have comments. And I know that you have been strategically preparing yourself, and God has been preparing you for this journey. And I do believe that part of your purpose is to advocate for people who sometimes don't feel like they have a voice. Yes, 45% of youth between the ages of 13 to 24 who identify as LGBTQ have considered suicide. And we need to put a face, and I'm so proud of this Stolen Lives Project. I'm so proud of people who will come and share their stories, because people die twice when we stop talking about them. So we want to keep people's names and prevent people from being in positions where they don't feel loved. They don't feel valued. They don't feel seen. They don't feel heard. They feel judged and discriminated against, from being in those positions where they get to that place of hopelessness and people turning their backs on them. So they literally feel so alone and desperate that they're just trying to get an escape from that pain. So it is people sharing stories like you. It is people doing this work that we need. And that's what's going to help break the stigma in the Black community. So you are a part of this journey, sir. And I thank you, Byron Omari Nicholas, for sharing that story on Tea Time with Dr. Tarver. There are a lot of resources Mr. Nicholas has shared with you all. I just want, if you need some education, because I do think it's important for us to educate ourselves. The Trevor project talks about how our youth are being affected. Black Trans Advocacy Coalition, the Tribe, which is a support group, mental health wellness organization, the National Center for Transgender Equality, and then the National Alliance on Mental Illness has a lot of good information. If you're just trying to learn more about how you can be an ally, how you can be supportive, or just so you can be very careful and sensitive. As Mr. Nicholas was talking about, the use of pronouns can mean so much: to be seen, to be recognized, to be able to be who you are, to walk in your skin. So I want to thank you for sharing your resources. Definitely for people, if you have questions, Mr. Nicholas has said he is more than happy to answer questions and share resources with you all. We are going to be continuing a discussion on Black men next month as we get into the June episodes of Tea Time with Dr. Tarver, which are going to focus exclusively on Black men. We're going to be talking about Black men and mental health. So Black men in the law, in our justice system. We're going to be talking about the barbershop as a safe space for Black men. We're going to be talking about our Black male pastors and issues that they face. And we're also going to be talking about Black men seeking mental health services and trying to eradicate that stigma. So join me in the month of June for live episodes of Tea Time with Dr. Tarver on Tuesdays at 7:30. You can catch me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and all your favorite podcast listening stations. Mr. Nicholas, thank you so much again for being here tonight. And I will definitely be calling on you in the future because I'm very excited to hear about how your surgery goes. Prayers for you. And thank you for everyone that joined tonight.